Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for Deeper in the Data with Amy Brombos. Um, we have a little bit of housekeeping for you before we get started with today's meeting. So, as usual, please go ahead and sign into the chat with your full name and district if you haven't done that already. You did register for this through Frontline, so we are keeping track and we will give credit where credit is due. Also, this meeting is being recorded. So after the meeting, it will be made available on our YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, you should go ahead and do that because you'll get notifications when there are new videos uploaded. And lastly, in addition to the video that will be shared, we will be sharing Dr. Brombos's slide deck with you after the fact. So keep a lookout in your email over the next few days for all of those assets. Okay. With no further ado, it is a distinct honor to introduce our guest, Dr. Amy Brombos. Dr. Brombos is a visionary leader in educational data who has spent over 25 years bridging the gap between complex analytics and institutional strategy. With a doctor in educational leadership, she currently serves as a data dissemination specialist for the U.S. Census Bureau, where she has consistently exceeded her goals in educating school district leaders on the uses of census data. Beyond her federal service, Amy is a sought-after consultant who has managed over $40 million in professional development grants and co-authored successful charter school applications across New York State. Her work is defined by a powerful conviction that data is not just a collection of numbers, but a collection of human stories. She specializes in revealing the academic potential hidden within neighborhood demographics, potential that traditional test scores often overlook. Please join me in welcoming a true champion of equitable opportunity and research-driven decision-making, Dr. Amy Brombos.
Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, I love these introductions. They make me feel so good about myself. So, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to start sharing my screen now. There we are.
Could people tell me, are you seeing Dr. Brombos's slides?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm Amy Brombos with the Census Bureau's Data Dissemination Branch, and I'm really glad that you are joining me here today. As you just heard, my background is in education, and I have sat where you are and I have done your jobs. And I want to tell you that I wish I'd known then that the data that I am about to share with you existed. It would have saved me so much time, so much aggravation. And we're all in this room because at some point every year, and usually several times a year, probably more now than when I did this, you're responsible for submitting numbers, for defending numbers, for explaining numbers to the state, to the federal government, both to your board, to the community, to parents, teachers. But I'm guessing at some point, each of you, like me, submitted data and then thought, is this going to hold up? Am I telling the right story? Is this going to be impactful enough? And can I really prove even what I just said? And so that's what today's about. I'm not going to tell you that you need to use more data. I'm not going to help make your reporting more complicated. What I'm going to do is show you sets of free federal tools that exist specifically to help you verify, benchmark, and add context to the numbers that you are already submitting. And there's no cost to these, there's no logins to these, you don't have to be a member for anything. It's just free public facing data. So if you participated in our last session, then you have sort of a basic familiarity with some of the tools that we're going to explore today, and the history of census data, where it comes from, why you want to utilize American Community Survey data to support much of your work. So I'm not going to rehash all that just for the sake of time. It's really important to know and understand, but we don't have a ton of time, and I want to show you a number of different things that we didn't get to last time. If you've not been in a training with me before, I know the recording of the last session was shared with you, and really never fear because I'm going to share the slide deck. I'm going to provide you with all of the links that were for the URLs and the tools that we're going to look at today. And I'm going to give you step-by-step directions on how to access every tool and every set that we explore together today. So you'll have that, usually within a day of when we do these presentations. Okay, so I'm really not sure of the exact days of the month of these. I hope that these are correct. But let's talk about the calendar that you're living right now. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my video just to clean up my screen a little bit. I hope you don't mind. I find it distracting. Okay, so there we go. I got it. All right, so let's talk about the calendars that you're living right now. So April through July, spring is really one of the most data intensive stretches of the school year. We've got enrollment snapshots, we've got ELL counts, region submissions are coming, staff evaluation windows, your special ed end of year report, any out of certification reports, and it keeps coming. And there's probably more. So this calendar was shared with me ahead of time, and I selected some of the deadlines where Census Bureau data are probably most directly useful. They're the starred ones, and those are where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. The unstarred ones I'm going to mention in context as we go because part of what I want you to leave with is kind of a mental map. Which tables connect to which submissions? Then you can come back to these on your own whenever you need it. And I'm going to give you a table that will give you or a table that's going to show you which tables within census data.census.gov can be utilized for each topic or subject area or report. So you'll have that to refer to later, more than even just these ones here, right? Okay. So here's how we're going to work through this today. I've got two storylines, and each one will connect multiple reports and multiple reporting deadlines and multiple census tools in sort of one continuous workflow. And workflows that I think hopefully you can actually repeat. So the first one is the poverty, enrollment, and ELL verification storyline. And we're going to look at poverty data for Title I and language and nativity data for your ELL counts. And then we're going to go into some workforce intelligence and achievement mapping. So we'll pull regional labor market data to put your out of certification situation kind of in context, right? Then we'll pull neighborhood income data that you can layer on top of your Regents results. And we're going to talk about some other research-based demographics that also are proven to impact academic success. And that's just additional data that you can use within your Regents results. If time allows, we're going to go back and explore broadband and how that can really impact chronic absenteeism and what's happening in the broadband world in New York State. Okay. So this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. Just about everything I demo lives at data.census.gov, and it's the Census Bureau's main public data portal. So if you were with me before, this is where we sort of lived that day. And if you want to follow along in your own browser, this is where you're going to go. And you might want to open that in another tab, data.census.gov. We're going to take today's demos from two main sources. One is the American Community Survey, the 5-year estimates, and that's really the sort of the gold standard for small geographies, especially school districts. The second source we're going to use is called SAPI. That stands for the Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates. And this is a separate tool. It's on a different URL. And this is designed specifically for federal program eligibility calculations. The most recent data have just been released in December, but these are the data from this tool that the federal government explicitly uses to determine title funding. So you're going to have access to all of that after you've always had access, but you're going to know how to get that now after today. Okay. Okay. So here's the scenario for our first storyline. It's April. Your enrollment attendance submission deadline is coming up. You're going to need to certify your Title I eligibility data. You've got numbers from beds, you've got data from your SIS, and your local poverty count. But you're wondering, or you're being asked, probably, do these numbers hold up against external benchmarks? And can we use these data to support a Title I school-wide program designation? At the same time, you're probably already looking ahead to June when your final ELL and immigrant counts are due. Um, you need to know whether you've captured all of the language groups in your district using relative to to that demographic. So especially for families that maybe have arrived more recently, we're going to need to sort of explore that. So I want to say something up front though. Our data, census data, it's not going to replace any of your official submission data. It can verify it, it can benchmark it, it can give you external evidence when you need to make a case, and that's really what we're going to do today. Okay, so let's talk about SAPI for a minute before I really show you the tool. As I said, this stands for Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates. So it's not a survey, it's a modeled estimate that combines the American Community Survey data. And again, that's done every year. 3.8 million households completed every year. It's really, truly invasive, the stuff that's asked. But we combine data from that with federal tax records and food assistance program data. Um, NYSED and the federal government then use this tool, these data, to calculate how much Title I money each district gets. This is the same data set that the government uses, and you're going to be able to pull from it now for free. And the question always comes up, if this is what they use anyways, the data are here, then why do we have to report this without having access to it? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you you will have access to it. Um, Starting today. Okay. So let's get out of here and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the tool. So this is what it looks like. You can see the URL at the top. You can also get to this tool using just going through the census.gov website. Or if you just search census SAPE, SAIPE, that'll usually just pop up. It'll take you often to the census website first, and then you click the SAPE tool, and it should take you to this. This is the homepage for SAPE. So you'll notice here that we can filter these data by three different categories: by state, by county, and by school district. If we do this by state and county, we're going to be able to pull data for all ages, for under 18, for under 5, and we're going to also be able to get median household income. The difference here is that when we go to school district, we're not going to be able to get all of the data that are over here on the side because we're just looking for the school age kids, right? And the data that supports them. So when we click school district, excuse me, you'll notice that this pops up and we can find our school districts in one of two ways. We can come over here and we can put in the state, New York, and filter by state, and kind of look through all 1,000 or 15,000 school districts that are listed here, school districts and schools. Or we can just start typing the ones in here that we want. So I'm going to start with Poughkeepsie. Now, as we start typing, it'll pop up. We don't often have to put in the whole name, and we can put in multiple school districts here. We don't have to have all of the same. So I think I saw in the chat we had New Paltz. Oop, not spelling it right. So we'll add that one here. And I saw we had Rhinebeck here. We'll add your school district. Let's see. How about Hyde Park? I think I saw. we'll go here. And which one else did I want to do? Newburgh, I think. We'll
We have
go
a
here.
we have
Okay,
a request for Cornwall.
Cornwall. City or, oh, that's Corning. Sorry, Cornwall. Okay. All right. So I added six. I've selected six. It's telling me down here. So if you want to add a bunch and you're not sure which ones you put in as you're going through your list, you can look down here and say, well, I added six. So if your list has seven, we can, that's now you have to go back and add some more. So I'm just going to click OK. When that happens, you'll notice the map and you'll notice this chart or graph start to change. You'll also notice down here, this table will populate with just the school districts that I submitted. And now what we're going to see here, and this should have sort of scrolled in a little more for us, which it didn't do, but eventually it's going to cooperate. So now we come down here and we can see on the map where these school districts are located. You'll notice that they're sort of outlined in red compared to the rest of them. The color coding here is giving us estimates of poverty. And as we hover over each school district, you'll notice that it is giving us those data. Over here, we can see in this line graph similar information, but now we're looking at our poverty data over the course of many different years. We have all of these different vintages available to us here. So two interesting things here. What we can do with these data, one, we can download it. If you come over here, you can download current display and you can do this as a picture or a PDF document. You can do the same thing with this map. So if you're looking to have some visual aids to go with your reports or anything that you're submitting, you can do that there. Down here within our table, we can do the same, but here we can download this as an Excel file or a CSV file so that we can organize these data, add more things to it as you find other data that I'm going to show you today that you might want to include. What's interesting about this data, though, and is, as I said, the data from SAPI are a little bit different. We're pulling data from both American Community Survey data and tax records and food assistance programs. So the poverty rates here are going to be different than the poverty rates you'll see when we look at official poverty measures or supplemental poverty measures within other data tools within data.census.gov. So when you are completing a report, most of the time they'll ask you specifically for something like official poverty measure. But for title data, for title grants, you want the SAPI poverty data. These numbers are typically higher than the regular official poverty measures because we're pulling data from three different sources. So it accumulates a lot of different information, and that allows us to sort of get these higher ratios. So now as we look through this table, we can see our total population for each school district. We can see the students or the children, school-age children, age 5 to 17 within these district boundaries. And excuse me, the families that are living in poverty here. So again, this says families, right? Not individual people, families. And so we can see that number here. And then here's the percentage of school-age children living in poverty from these data here. Okay. So now we can see that some of the urban districts are probably almost always, but certainly here, showing significantly higher poverty rates. And some of the suburban districts are going to show lower rates. Um, and we'll be able to support this, whether it's SAPI data or our official poverty measures, when we look at that table sort of a little bit later. But this is where this is going to become operational, right? So if your table one or your Title I poverty counts are based on free and reduced lunch or direct certification, SAPI gives you sort of an independent external number to compare against. If your direct certification rate is 42% and SAPI shows child poverty in your district up at, 21% here for Poughkeepsie, those numbers are not consistent. There's a big gap in either direction, and so that's going to be worth investigating before you submit. Now, if your certification rate was 42 and your child poverty rate in your district was 38, that's pretty consistent and your data will hold up. For school-wide program designations, a school needs, I think it's still 40% low-income students. So SAPI data or the American Community Survey Census tracked data that are within your boundaries, and I can show you how to find that too, can give you sort of a second layer of documentation for your Title I narrative. Now notice this last column here that says reference map has a link to it. So if we click this is going to take us right back to data.census.gov. As I said, this is our feature data portal. We've explored this before if you were with me. But what's nice about this is, so we're looking at our SAPI data here. Let's say this is leading, the beautiful thing about data, right, is that every time we look at data, we look at numbers, it should make us ask more questions. So we're looking at these poverty rates. And so this is going to lead us to questions about why, like who's living here? Why are these people living in poverty? Is this centralized in any one neighborhood within our school district? And so when we clicked on map and it took us to data.census.gov, what it did was all automatically filter out this school district for us and then gives us 1,600 different maps that we can look at. If we switch this to tables, we can see all of those tables that were also available to us in maps, available here in tables. Now, maps are great, but we're mapping currently one school district. We have one sort of blue blob here. So we can add more school districts to this, which we're going to do, or we can go down and scroll down through these tables to see all of the information available to us based on our school district. And all of this is going to support the work that we've got to do. So let's go ahead and talk about ELL and immigrant counts while we're here. So we're going to transition now here to data.census.gov. If you want to open that in another tab, it's very simple, data.census.gov. And this is what you're going to see when you land there. This is the home page for data.census.gov. So we're looking at, I think June submission is ELL, immigrant counts, and are also included there. And so accurate ELL identification, it really matters for Title III funding, for your ESSA reporting, for program planning, budgeting these services. But immigrant families, and especially your newer arrivals, are sometimes undercounted when outreach isn't reaching sort of all language communities or they've recently moved into your district. So census data can help us identify which language communities exist in our district's geographic area. It's not going to tell you exactly which students from these families are in your schools because they might attend private school, charter schools, be homeschools, and that's a different table. But we're showing what languages are in your district boundaries. So if a language group is going to show up in the census data in a significant number, and it's not showing up on your ELL roster, then that's something that is worth investigating. So I'm going to show you two tables. We're going to look at a foreign-born population overview, and then we're going to move into some detailed uh, language data. So the first thing we want to do is come over here to our geographies. The geographies listed here are just the most common ones used. And you'll notice here school district is not an option. So we need to come down here to all geographies where now all geographic options are listed to us. And you'll see we can get this by congressional district, we can get it by assembly district, we can get this by tribal area if you're working in a tribal region. But here's our school district options. So we've got elementary, secondary, and unified. And most all districts in New York are unified, K through 12. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And now I'm going to tell it which state I want. And then here is what happens. We get every school district listed to us. We don't have the option here of filtering this out by county. So instead, we're going to start typing our districts here, and they're going to pop up for us just like they did before. So I'm going to add a bunch of districts. Let's see, I got 3. I want to have a pretty good, oops. I have a pretty good variety here. So all right, we've got five. So now I've selected my five school districts that I want to compare. I've got my geographies. And the thing is, you've got districts here, but let's say you wanted to do something to compare. You're not comparing just to neighboring school districts. You want to compare what's happening in your district to maybe a city, to maybe a town, to the county. You can add different geographies to every table. You're not stuck with just one type or category of geography. But I'm going to leave it at schools here for now. So now I'm going to come down to topics and I want to find native and foreign born people. So I'm going to come down here to populations and people. And when I click on any one of these, it gives me a bunch of different options. One of the things to note here is that if we've got just a little box, that's where our option ends. If you see other things here with more carrots, we know when we click there, we're going to get further options. And so I want to know about foreign born population, get an overview. So I'm going to click native and foreign born. And you can see again, we have another carrot that drills it down further. So I want to, though, go right here, native and foreign born, because sometimes keeping it general gives us more options. And that's kind of what I want to show you. So I'm going to stick here with native and foreign born. And now I'm going to click search. Now you only have to click search the first time you put in geographies and topics. After you've already done this, you can go back here and you can change your topics, you can change your geographies, and it'll automatically populate for you. So now you can see I'm given all of the different options available to me using those filters that I have selected. So we've got 72 different options here. And I want to find S0501, which is characteristics of native and foreign born populations right here. Now, I'm going to click this and it's eventually going to populate here. Here we go. Now, what you'll notice here is that this is giving us a bunch of different information. We can see this population by sex and age, by race and ethnicity, by household type, by marital status, by school enrollment, by educational attainment, by languages spoken at home and ability to speak English. But you'll notice here this is only giving us sort of a general overview, not specific languages, except for Spanish. Employment status, class of worker, occupation, industries, on earnings in the last 12 months, income, whether or not they have additional income for supplemental security and SNAP, and poverty status, poverty rates. The options here go on and on and on. Where are they living? Are they in an overcrowded situation? Do they have vehicles? Do they have a phone? And again, as I told you, the American Community Survey data, it is all encompassing and it asks a lot of different sort of invasive questions, but all of these questions align with the rows that you see here. That just gives you a general idea of the questions we're asking here. You'll notice that we've got estimated numbers here and then our margins of error. Just to clean this up, I'm going to get rid of margin of error by clicking this. We can also adjust our column widths here just to show this is now going to give us for your school district the native born population, the foreign born population, those who are foreign born but citizen, and those who are foreign born and not citizens. So we've got that information here for us for every school district that we selected. Now, I want to draw your attention up here because if we want to do any comparative analysis of this and look at vintage years, we can. So we can click on that carrot. It's going to tell us what other years are available to us for this table. And we can go through and we can select different options. Is there a question?
Yes, thank you. There's a question in the chat from Sherry, and she is asking, when you're looking at year 2024, does that refer to our 2023-24 school year or the
No.
2024-25 school year?
What we're looking at here is a 5-year estimate of data. So this is actually the average estimates from 2020 to 2024. So all small area estimates or all small area geographies you'll only be able to find those by 5-year estimates. So these aren't for school years. These are or academic years. These are for that time frame of 5 years. So And again, we're using this to sort of supplement the data that you've got within your student information system. And so we want to be able to support what you've got with these data, right? And I'm going to give you some examples of that specifically. So this table is telling you sort of the share of your district's population that are foreign born. In the Mid-Hudson region, districts like Poughkeepsie and Newburgh seem to have significantly higher foreign-born populations, even than the state average. And the non-citizen foreign-born figure here is where I want you to focus on for a second, because these are could be recently arrived families whose children might not be identified yet or enrolled in ELL services. And so a high number here might signify that your outreach needs to be a little more intentional and multilingual, based on the data that you've got to support it. Now, if I can, where is it? Come to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead now, though, and I'm going to show you. We're going to go back. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at what those languages are. So we said they may have different languages. Well, what are those languages? We're going to come over here. I'm going to go to view all filters and I'm going to get rid of native and foreign born because I want to know just about languages spoken at home at this point. So I'm going to come back down here for topic. I'm going to go back down to populations and people, and you'll see right here, languages spoken at home. So I click that, and again, now I don't have to click the button at the bottom. It's automatically going to populate. I've got only 32 results here, so that's great. I don't have to scroll through a ton. And I am going to find I want B16002. Detailed household language by household, limited English speaking status. So we can get the languages by household, but we really want to know not just what language they're speaking, but how well are they speaking English. And so this by limited English speaking status is important to us. So let's take a look. Again, I'm going to get rid of margin of error here. And now I can see that this is telling me how many families in my district speak Spanish. They speak Spanish and they are limited English or they're not limited English. So here we can see for Cornwall, you've got 83 families that are reporting that they speak Spanish and they have limited English proficiency. We can come down and see we've also got French, Haitian, Cajun, German, Russian, Polish, Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, other Asian and Pacific languages, Arabic. So we've got quite a few different languages listed here. Now, what you can do, what I would suggest doing here, is downloading tables like this as an Excel file. You can save them as Excel files. You can save them as CSV type files. And if I were to select zip file, it gives me the option of downloading multiple vintages as well. So this is what it's going to look like when you download this. You're going to get a table that gives you all of the information about what this table is. And then when we go to data, you're going to see all of the data here that we selected. So what I would say doing here is now taking a table like this and filtering it for language groups where a meaningful number of residents are speaking English less than very well. And then you compare that list to the languages represented on your ELL roster. So let's say that your roster is showing 300 Spanish speaking students and 12 Haitian Creole students, but this table is telling you that your district has a Haitian Creole speaking population that's comparable in size to your Spanish speaking population. That's a significant gap. And that's telling us that, well, maybe your outreach materials aren't in Haitian Creole. So maybe those families aren't returning the home language survey. It could be both an equity issue and a compliance issue. And our census data can expose that. So this table is going to help you sort of prioritize which language groups might need to be translated into materials and given to interpreters first. When we're looking for data to support this, you might also be interested in mobility data or geographic mobility, that's going to show recent movers into your district. And those households may also help identify sort of newly arrived immigrant families who also might not yet be on your ELL roster. So now if I come back here, I want to show you a visual because it kind of captures this key idea. On the left is what your ELL roster says. On the right is what the American Community Survey census data are showing you about language communities in your district. So if these two columns don't match proportionally, if a language group is present in the community, but it's not present on your roster or it's really underrepresented on your roster, you've got a potential identification gap. And so this data is not going to solve it, but it's going to point you to the direction. It's going to point you to the questions that you need to ask. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Before I move to the next storyline, I want to quickly flag two more deadlines that connect to the work that I just showed you. Your final monthly enrollment snapshot and your attendance submissions. If your enrollment is declining year over year, and most currently in New York State are now due to population shifts, the annual census population estimates can give you external context for why. So we release vintage population estimates for counties and for incorporated places, or which is smaller than a county every year. So you can pull the county estimates on data.census.gov and compare them to earlier years to see the direction and the size of population change. So, for example, if Dutchess County lost a meaningful number of residents since 2020, your enrollment deadline or decline isn't an anomaly. It's consistent with regional demographic trends. And you can then use that within part of your narrative. So that matters when we're presenting to the board, we're presenting to the state, we're preparing budgets, we're talking about your superintendents are talking about a need for tax increases. You've got to forecast your pre-K and kindergarten attendance, and you're planning for staffing needs. So I actually just did a national workshop a couple weeks ago on this very topic, how to use our data to forecast for pre-K and kindergarten, to forecast your enrollment trends, and how to really identify that population or enrollment cliff, right? So using a couple districts that, true stories, had, significant decreases, but they weren't prepared for them. They expected to maintain and then lost, thousands of students over the course of a couple of years. And if we'd been paying attention to the community data, they would have been able to predict that. And instead, they then had to do layoffs in the middle of a year. They had a $40 million budget deficit. So these are data that we can use to support these submissions, right? So you can support your final enrollment, your attendance submissions, because this feeds your state aid calculations, right? So with population estimates at the county subdivision level, which are towns and cities, if enrollment drops significantly beyond what the demographic trends are predicting, then you've got something else to look at before you're submitting. Where are these students? Are they going to private schools? Are they in district but attending schools, outside of district? Are they being homeschooled? Are they not enrolled? What is happening there? Okay. So storyline two. Now we're going to move from student data to adult data. We want to look at the workforce in our community. And so this is our scenario where our out of certification report is coming due, and we've got teachers in classrooms that are teaching outside of their certification area. And we're not supposed to have many of those, but it could be significantly increasing over the next couple of years based on workforce trends that we've identified. But you've got to figure out, is it a recruitment problem? Is it a pipeline problem? Is it a compensation problem? Is it all three? And then with that, let's talk about your Regents results that come in around July, right? I think. Your superintendent is going to need to strategically plan for 26-27 and needs data to explain the relationship between where your students live, what their neighborhoods look like economically, their family structure, and how they performed on state assessments. Because census data can give you all of that supplemental data, and all of those things have research-based implications on academic success and testing. So this can help sort of identify where there might be needs and gaps. Okay, so we're going to, oop, let me go back too far. We're going to go back to data.census.gov to support our our out of certification data. And so here we can identify certification gaps along regional labor market trends. Let me get back here. Okay. We can also be strategic in PD planning using regional attainment and earnings benchmarks. Now, if you were in this training with me previously, we went here to reset and go back to the home page. This has been modified. We now have to go here to data.census.gov. So our other option is to come down here and clear all our filters. But sometimes that causes more problems than good. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go back to my home page, click Explore Filters to bring me back to a clean data.census.gov page. Okay. So I want to know your out of certification report is going to tell you where there are gaps in your own district. And we now want to find data that tells us something about the regional supply of educators. Why are there gaps there? Do they exist in your region and you just can't get them to come to your school district? Do they not exist? So these are two different problems with two different solutions. So this point, though, I don't want to look at just the district because, we're hiring people to come in from outside the district. Let's go ahead. We're going to look at county instead. And so you might want to take counties that like within a certain sort of radius, I guess, or circumference around your school district to do this. Or you might even want to choose, well, probably not the state, that's too big. I'm just going to go to county. And let's see, I think we've got in here Dutchess and Ulster. And what do we got? Westchester,
Sullivan, no, not
Sullivan,
Westchester, not
not
West,
Westchester,
Ulster and
Sullivan.
Orange Ulster.
Oh, and Orange. It shouldn't be
Yeah,
hard.
that's
It's
the
all
closest.
in.
Yeah, Orange. Yep.
I wonder why there's two here all of a sudden. Oh no, that's Ontario. Jeez.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've got our four filters now. We've got these counties. Thank you for your help. And now I want to know about occupations, who's working in this field. So I'm going to come down here and select employment. And now you see I have all of these different options here, but I want occupation. So one thing you'll find is as you're doing this, you'll find tables that, and I'm going to click search. You're going to find tables that will give us information about occupations and about workforce trends that are going to sort of cluster things together. Like a lot of times we'll see education with healthcare and social secure or social services. Well, we don't want that now. We want to know specifically who's just working in education. So that's why I selected occupation and not some of the other things that were there. So here are our options. It gave us 47 data sets, so that's not too bad to sort of scroll through. I want to find S2411 because I want occupation by median earnings because I want to know who's working in the field and what are they making within our geographies. So I'm going to click this and these are going to pop up for us. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reduce my margin of error because I really want to be able to see and compare this. What's also interesting here is that these data, these tables, oh, why is this? There's a pop-up here that I gotta move. Okay. These tables will give us information on median earnings for men and women. and also give us the percentage of difference between men and women. So, for example, here you can see women make 92% as much as men in management occupations, but 59% as much as men in business and financial operations. So if we come down here to education, legal, and community services, here we've got education, instruction, and library occupations. So that's what we want. And we can see in Dutchess County, women are making about 84% as much as men. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that if we dove down into this really deeply, we would find that, and I'm sure you're aware, the majority of people in administrative positions tend to be men. And so that would probably explain a big portion of that. But what this is going to do for us, we just really want to know right now for median earnings. So I'm going to do something here, which I want to get rid of our male and female. Here we go. Columns. Oop, and the percentage column, because I just want to see these next to each other. Okay, so now what this is giving me is all of the different counties next to each other that I selected here. And it's giving us median earnings for these counties for people that are working in these occupations. So we can look at this and see now, is there a difference? And if there is a distance, what is the distance? Or what, sorry, distance, difference. Excuse me. So we've got Orange County. Is Orange County less than, oh no, I guess Ulster County is less than some of the other two. So again, this leads us to other questions that we can answer using census data. So we know that we've got, so here's our earnings data. We want to use that to compare to what it is that we're offering our employees. And then we also want to know, well, within these counties, how many people are qualified to work in education, knowing that in order to work in this field, we've got to attain, we must have attained minimally a bachelor's degree, but to get and maintain our certification, we're going to need a master's degree or higher. So now I can come over here to education. Let's say that I downloaded that previous table, so I've got that already. I'm going to come down here to education, and I'm going to go ahead to add educational attainment. Oh, you know what? Between that and this, the other thing I should have done was gone back to occupation and selected a different table, not median earnings, but number of people in that field. So we can go back to that. But now here with educational attainment, S1501, this now gives me information on the number of people. And again, this is going to give me male, female, which I can get rid of those columns over here by eliminating them and putting them here like you saw me do before. So I can look at each county next to each other. Now, typically we're going to look 25 and over, and we're going to look at not some college, no degree, but bachelor's degree and graduate or professional degree. So we want to know all of the people, the number of people that have these degrees. So what's the likelihood that these employees within our potential employees within our county have the credentials in order to work for us? While we're here though, I want to tell you that we probably also want to take a look or download this table to keep it for later. So to take a look at the number of people or families within our counties that do not have, and you'll notice as we go down here, we have age by educational attainment, race, ethnicity, all of this information. And we've got earnings here as well. But we probably want to pay attention here also to especially households that do not have these academic credentials, that do not have a high school degree specifically, because this is going to help us identify when we get to that academic achievement, those gaps later, when we especially talking about regions. There's a lot of research out there that says this is a very, very strong indicator of student success. So right now we're looking at this for, how many people are employable. but we also are going to keep this in the back of our mind for how many families struggle at home, maybe with adult literacy. That might be something that we need to go back and address. So let's see, what time do I have? Okay, we're doing okay.
There was another question, Amy, in the
Yes.
chat, and I had to excuse myself for a moment, so I'm not sure if you saw it. So pardon me if this is double dipping. But a question from Sherry says that it seems like a lot of your data is based on the American Community Survey. And
Uh-huh.
her question is, who fills out this survey? Who's it sent to?
This is sent to 10% of the population annually. So 3.8 million households get this survey every year. So that is more than enough for statistical significance. And we then are able to use that to sort of create these estimates for the American population. And so obviously it's diversified throughout every county, every town, every city, every state, and they're selected that way. So about once every 10 years, your household, if you're staying there for an extended period of time, would have received it probably once every 10 years. Just like the decennial census, it is a required survey that you have to complete and return, and if not, then an enumerator will contact you to get that those data from you and that information from you. Now, let me show you this as long as we're on this conversation. This is a tool called Census Reporter. And this one I love to show people. This is actually created by journalists, not us, but it really breaks down the different topics that we've got tables by because there are so many. But one of the reasons I want to show you this, one of the reasons I like this is because we were talking about employment and occupation. So let's come here. Is that this gives you an overview of every table available to you within data.census.gov, but it also shows you here how are we asking questions on the American Community Survey about this specific topic. So you'll see there are quite a few questions about employment, but sometimes understanding how we ask the questions helps understand the data that are available to you. This is also helpful because if you're looking for a certain table and you're not really sure how to filter through the topics, we can come here and this gives us every single table that's available to you about employment. And it offers you all of the definitions and explanations of what the language we're using means. And so you can see there are a lot of different tables. So we can find employment based correlated with many, many different things. And this tool, if you bookmark it and you're like, well, I need to know data to supporting data for my school, my reporting about disability, you come in here, you see what the questions are, you look at this overview, it gives you a definition and explanation of what the disabilities are that we're tracking, and then it gives you information on every table we have that goes along with this. Now, let's say you think, well, I want age by disability status because I just want school age children. Will this table give me that? And when I click it, it gives me all of the rows and columns that will be available to me on that table. So I can look at that and say, well, yeah, 5 to 17, it's going to give me just with a disability or no disability for the school age population. But here I can then go by each individual disability. I can go by age by number of disabilities. I can go by age, by disability status, and poverty status. So now, if you're in a lot of, I'm going to say urban district, but also rural districts really struggle. Really, the data frequently are complementary there. Where you've got high poverty, you'll typically also see high disability, high unemployment, a lower percentage of people who've got degrees. So we have tables that will provide you with those data that correlates all that together so you don't have to do that on your own. Okay. So I went back to occupation because I wanted to this one because I wanted to look and see, well, who is the number of people working in our field. Here we go, education. So now this is giving me the numbers, not just the wages. And so this is what we should have done here. We do number, we do wages, and then we look at those people that have the credentials or degrees. So now within Dutchess County, you can see in this occupation, we've got a little over 12,000 people. In Orange County, 16,000 people. In Sullivan County, almost 2,000 people. In Ulster, almost 8,000 people. So that are working in these fields. It's not telling us specifically what position they have, but we're getting a general number. So remember, this could also be our teachers' aides. This could be anyone who's doing instruction or anyone who's in the library, not just certified teachers. So now we've got a real comprehensive view, the number of people available to work in the schools, how much they're making, and the percentage of the population and the number of the population that have the degrees that we really hope that they're going to have in order to fill our positions. So this is a good labor market context for your staffing challenges. And when you're writing that Title II professional development application, you've got now this external evidence. Right? You're not just saying that you have out of certification teachers, you're demonstrating that the regional labor market has a limited and increasingly competitive supply of certified educators. And that's why you need the funding for sustained PD, for a residency investment, perhaps if necessary. And now that argument is going to land very differently than just saying we have a staffing problem. There are other options for us here too. We can go and look at, we have another tool. I'll just pull up real quickly here for you because I want you to see it, called PSEO Explorer. This stands for Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes. And why this is good for that is we can come here to state. And now I want to identify that this has all partner institutions in New York. So this is going to give us information. Where is education? This is going to give us income for people who've graduated from schools from all over the state. So that income is going to be different if, there it is, if they're living down in near Manhattan or Long Island versus, Western New York or up in the North Country. So you can then take this and say, well, what are the colleges and universities in my area that I'm recruiting from? How many people are graduating from that university? What is their expectation as far as salary is concerned? Does this here match with the wages that I just identified when I was in data.census.gov? Those are important things to identify. So if I can come here and I can select different universities. Now, SUNY and CUNY will be listed by SUNY and CUNY, not by the name of the school, except for if you're looking at community colleges, which if you are going to recruit people out of like the certification programs for teacher aides and teacher assistants, you might find those in community colleges. But other than that, these are the ones that we're going to find. So here you've got Orange County Community College, for example. You'll see those there. So if you want to, anybody got a college in mind that you typically recruit from or that's in your county or your region? I think of what I know.
It doesn't
I
New
don't want
Paltz,
community.
Vassar, Marist,
Fair. Let's
Mount
go to
St.
Vassar.
Mary,
Mary.
SUNY New Paltz.
Oh, SUNY. Let's go SUNY New Paltz. Yep. There it is. Jeez, it took me a while. Okay. So now we can see the people graduating with degrees in education. Here's we just selected bachelor's degree here in education. This is their 1, 5, and 10-year post-grad average earnings. So we've got some information here. What I can also do is switch this from earnings to flow. So what that's going to tell me is, and I'm going to switch this here to geography, of those people graduating 303,331 with this degree, how many are staying in New York? So here really is my pool that I am going to recruit from. So they're staying in New York. Are they staying in this industry? So of the almost 3,000 that graduated that stayed in New York, look at this, only 1,800 of them are staying in this field. So that's another question. Why? Why is that the case? Why are they going to all of these other industries to work and not here? So this gives you some other information to layer on top of that report. And again, we can do this by all different universities that are participating in this. We can also here come back to earnings. And now you'll notice when I come down here, this is general education. If I click detailed, now it's going to give me more information. You can see special education teachers are making more than what our average was. For professional development and subject area specializations, it's also a little more than our general number was. So now we can look at more specific degrees within this education program at SUNY New Paltz. If I switch this to master's degree, I now see that that number increases. So now of the people with a master's degree, tell me who is staying in my area and tell me, are they staying in this field? So more people are staying in the field that are staying in New York when they have a master's degree than when they simply had a bachelor's degree. So again, these are questions that this just leads us to more questions, right? Why are they leaving New York? Why are they not staying in this field? And then we come back to our data.census.gov to try to find the answers to that problem. Okay, so let's talk about Regents achievement here real quick. When your Regents results come in, you've got pressure to explain those numbers. So why are they underperforming? What is the plan? And an honest answer often comes from our community conditions, right? Poverty, housing stability, language barriers, access to transportation, food stability. And these aren't showing up in your internal student data, but they're very visible in census data for the neighborhoods that you're living in. And not only that, but we can identify this by something as small as a tract. So a census tract is like a neighborhood, a group of about 4,000 people. And we can identify which tracts are in your school, your county, within your school district. And we can look at just those tracks to be able to say, well, now for a lot of people, like within my school district, I've got pockets where they're making, families are making $120,000 a year versus pockets where families are making $30,000 a year. And that's a problem. And we can then identify based on zip code data which students live where. So you know the students that are underperforming, that are not meeting benchmarks. You know from their zip codes where they live. We come in here, we look at those zip codes, what's the poverty rate there, and other things, and that gives us now a pretty good supporting narrative. So I want to know about poverty here. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead though. I'm going to get rid of some of these other counties. I'm going to keep one of them because I want to show you what I was just talking about. If I'm going to look at Dutchess County, but then I want to look at I'm not going to do tract. I'm going to do zip code because I know you can identify those from the information you have in your SIS. So let's make this go a little quicker. You'll notice this says zip code tabulation area. We call that ZICTA. ZICTAs are how the government organizes geography. Zip code is what the post office does with a ZICTA. Now, for New York, we're very lucky in that almost all ZICTAs and zip codes match up. Okay, now you'll notice here I picked New York and it's giving me everyone in New York State. We don't want that. We want just the ones that are in this one county. And do we want to go through and select each one? Not really. But you'll notice here where it says within other geographies, I can now select county. I can come to Dutchess, and now I can say all zip codes within this county. So now I'm going to look at all zip codes within this county, and I want to know about the number or the percentage of those living in poverty. So I'm going to come down to topic. I'm going to go to income and poverty. You can see I have income and poverty here. I have poverty. I have income and earnings. I'm going to go ahead and just select poverty. Actually, no, I'm not because I think I also want to know income. So I'm going to select both. And that's going to populate over here. So I've got quite a few results. I want poverty status in the last 12 months. It's the first one here. Get rid of margin of error. Now, what I want to draw your attention to, you'll notice I have county. I don't have the zip codes here. The reason is because This is available to us in both 1 and 5 year estimates. The difference between the two is that we can only publish 1 year estimate data for geographies that have 65,000 people or more. And not even every county in New York State has met that population threshold, but certainly smaller geographies like ZICTAs do not. So if you ever pull up a table and all of a sudden the geographies aren't there, check this. And that's probably why, especially if you're comparing a county to something smaller. So now, I can look at this and say, below poverty, right? So number below poverty, percent below poverty for the county. This is going to tell us for our school age children, 6.8% of the county are living below poverty. Now, I have a couple options here. I can go start sliding through and take a look at all of these different zip codes and try to find out where this is concentrated, or a much easier way would be to map it. So now I've got Dutchess County here, and you can see based on the colors, this is giving me population for whom poverty status is determined, the percent below poverty for the whole population. I want to know about school age children, so I'm going to come up here and change that. Now I can see school age children, percent below poverty. Now this is not the easiest. I can change the colors here because I really want to notice and see where we've got a gap. Now here we can immediately see we've got one zip code area, or ZICTA, where we have a significant number of school-age children living in poverty. And I click on that and it's automatically going to pop up here for me and tell me what that percentage is and what that ZICTA is. So now I know in this zip code, we've got 43.3% of the students living in that zip code are living in poverty versus all this red in which 0 to 3% of school age children are living in poverty. So let's come down here. We've got 3% here. Right here, this neighboring zip code to the one that had 43% has less than 1% of school age children living in poverty. Now, I don't know what's happening here within these geographies, but which if you are in school districts there or you're in that county, you will. We can also change what our base map looks like, maybe to see what's there. Maybe it's low because it's in the middle of a park, who knows. I can change my transparency of my colors so I can really see what's underneath there if I need to. So if you're not familiar with what's happening here, we can try to explore it this way to find out what's going on within these geographies. Okay. So that is an option for you to be able to identify. Now this becomes part of your narrative. We go through, we find the students who are not being successful, who scored poorly, and then we're going to ask, well, why might that be? Well, a significant number of them will come from the zip code. We know 43% of school age children in this zip code are living in poverty. We can also look at food stamps and supplemental nutrition assistance. And sometimes when we are in just mapping and we switch our tables, we have to go back to table first and then go to map. It just gives I don't know, it resets the program somehow. But this gives us information now on households receiving food stamps and public assistance, what the family makeup is of that. Do they have school-age children? Do they not have school-age children? What is the poverty status? What is the disability status for these households that are receiving assistance? And so again, this draws a number of correlations for you that you can layer on top of the narratives that you're creating. And then let's see if we can find 19. Did we select here? We have, I had both poverty and income and poverty. That's why it's not popping up. I'm going to go income and earnings and just income here because that's what I want to just try to find real quick as we are running low on time. So here we've got income in the past 12 months. And I know I'm going quickly through this. I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions for all of it. We see here that for Dutchess County, we only have Dutchess County. We don't have our zip codes. So we come up here because we want to know why. There's a 1 year estimate there. I'm going to click 5, so all of my ZICTAs pop up as well. Okay, so now we can see based on earnings what's happening here. And I can go ahead and again map this, and I can scroll through all of these earnings to find out what's happening within these counties where we had students who were living in poverty. Now that is, I'm going to do median income. That's the one I really wanted. That not where I had to scroll through and select each one. Okay, so here we've got median earnings for households. 5 years, median income. So now if I go ahead and I chart this, we can try to identify, is there still the same kind of gap here as there was with poverty? We can see here, oh, I can see now this. I was like, why is this did it by, it popped up by race first. One of the things that I want you to notice is here, one of the reasons I would say it's really important to look at the tables first is because when we switch from table to map, it's automatically going to give you it's going to map the top row. So if we scroll through here and we know by, we scroll here and we look at all the rows, then when we go to map, it'll just be much easier for us to quickly run down and identify what we're mapping. When we come up here, we can scroll through and we know, well, I want to scroll down a little bit because I want to know families with children under 18. Oh, this is just giving me number of families. This is not giving me the median income, which is what I had tabled here. But it should have. And if I played with it another couple times, it would eventually pop up. So pay attention to that too. Sometimes it's temperamental. But we can then look at and compare those same two things. So this is an example of how this can kind of be reported. The schools, if you wanted to say the schools with the highest rates of Regents underperformance are located in the census tracts with a median household income below $32,000 and a child poverty rate above, let's say, $35,000. Now, this sentence transforms your region report from a performance spreadsheet into a story about community conditions. So it's changing the conversation, not why are these students failing, but sort of what resources do these communities need, and now what's it gonna take to provide them. And I'm not saying this takes the ownership off of the educators for poor performance, but it gives you a comprehensive view of what else is happening outside of the classroom. Can they come in and concentrate and participate and go home and study and do all of the things they need to do in these neighborhood and housing conditions? Now, your board is going to receive that argument differently than a state reviewer, than a grant reviewer. But when you submit for the next competitive cycle, you're going to have historical data now that you can really build upon. And these stories that you're going to use to tell you're going to tell different stories to different audiences, but same data, but sort of a different story. So we've got about 15 minutes left. I can go in and show you broadband, um, unless there are some specific questions.
If you have questions, go ahead and you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if you prefer, put them in the chat and we'll ask for you.
There we are. Okay. Well, oh, you know what? I should have kept those. I'm going to go ahead and actually, I'm going to go back to school district. Now, if you have a question, please ask. But otherwise, I'm going to start moving forward and show you how we can use broadband and computer ownership and how you can use that to supplement and support your absenteeism data.
We do have one question in the chat, Amy.
Great.
Nikki asks, in communities with high levels of transiency, immigrant
Mhm.
populations, and multi-family or double tripled up households,
Mhm.
how do we ensure our superintendents and boards of education that this is truly reflective of our community?
Um, Census data are truly, and I'm not just saying this because I work here, it's really the gold standard of data worldwide, especially in the United States. We do not publish any data that we cannot confidently and absolutely say has a 95% confidence interval. So not only is it annually updated, it's quadruple checked. There's a 95% confidence interval that the data are completely accurate. But more than that, if we take into account the margins of error, which I kept kind of getting us out of, and I can show you what that is, and why that's there. So if we're looking at, did we download it here? We didn't. Well, here we've got, say, our Spanish speaking people with limited English. If we had also downloaded the margins of error here, we would say, well, we want to find, are the margins of error large or are the margins of error small? For larger geographies, they're typically very small. For smaller geographies, and if they're big, that's something that we're going to question and but work through. But typically, you're going to say, well, our limited English speaking households are going to range, let's say, between 78 and 86, because we would have that margin of error. Now, when this number here, this is published with a 95% confidence interval. Within that margin of error, it's much higher. It's like 99%. So for you to be able to say that we're 99% confident, the Census Bureau, the data professionals at the Census Bureau, the statisticians, and all of the people that work there are 99% confident that those are the number of families that are limited English speaking. Now, if that is not enough for the people that you're reporting to, and typically anyone who works with data is very familiar with American Community Survey, then within census.gov, you can find all of the supporting evidence and documentation, the methodologies that go along with that you might need to support those data. But I work with Department of Education. I work with SUNY. They pull these data every day. So they are familiar. If you're submitting a report to them and you're using census data, I can tell you that they respond to that very well.
Thank
Oh,
you. There is another question
okay.
from Lisa. She says, is it anticipated that data collection will continue as robustly as it has in the past with the current administration?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I am going to answer that this way. The Census Bureau has historically been a separate branch of government, essentially. It's funded differently, it works independently, and we are still doing that. Now, have we experienced brain drain like the rest of the government with the number of people that were asked to retire early or dismissed? Yes, we have. However, we still have a considerable number of people working within each division. Now, for me, what I do, there's one of me for either every state or region in the country, but our job is not specifically to do the calculations, it's to explain them and teach other people about them. We're down to only 19 people. So are we going to be able to make sure people are aware of the data, that they're using it, that they're really data literate, that they can fact check, with only 19 of us in the whole country? It's going to become much tougher, which is why I like to really market this to educators, because they then in turn can educate other people about it, right? We have not limited or reduced any of the surveys that we currently do. We do over 100 surveys every single year. So American Community Survey is just one of them. And then there are other surveys we do every 3 years, every 5 years, every seven, and then of course the decennial census that's done once every 10. Now, there are arguments as to whether or not will we collect it as robustly? Yes, we are still doing that, and we intend to continue to do that. The question, I think, becomes, with the mistrust in government, are people likely to answer the surveys and return them and or answer them truthfully? That's where we have been, that's where our conversations internally have been. Not are we going to still do it, but what are the results we're getting from other people? Now, the idea, like the big decennial census question about citizenship, the decennial census is a question of who lives in the United States, who's living and working in the United States during this period of time. And it's only 10 questions. It's just who lives here, how old are they, what is their sex or gender, and what's the relationship of the people in the home. And that's it. We do ask citizenship on other surveys, including the American Community Survey. You saw that. I just showed that to you. So, and that's asked every year, not once every 10. The difference is the decennial census is used for um, congressional boundaries, assembly boundaries. That's used for things that the American Community Survey has not typically been used for. And the reason it's the decennial census that's used for funding, over $1 trillion in funding decisions, for where our boundaries lie, is because that's all written into the Constitution that way. So I hope that answers your question somewhat, probably more. So definitely a soapbox issue we have. So you can see I put school districts back in here. And I'm going to come down here to housing. And within housing, I'm going to go to physical characteristics. And again, this is where it becomes really cumbersome to find where's the data located, under what topic, under what caret. And that's where the Census Explorer comes in and can help. But here under physical characteristics, I have computer and internet access. So I want to know this one, type of computer and internet subscription. The reason I want to know type is because in this particular table is because this is going to give me information on households that have a desktop or laptop versus just a smartphone. And this is important because you will find that there are quite a few households that do not have a desktop or laptop, but they have just a smartphone. So tell me, can students do their homework on just a smartphone? Can they do virtual learning on just a smartphone? Can they, excuse me, can they do their homework? What if, there's so many different things the questions that are raised when we look at the types of computer that they have at home. Is it just a tablet or other portable device? Is it no access at all to anything? And then types of internet subscription as well. What's the percentage of households that have broadband versus dial-up, which still exists. And then we can come down here to see income versus whether or not they have internet. And now we already looked at the zip codes that were located within your districts and counties. So we know what the median income is. And now we can look at income and say, well, within that median income for our homes that had high poverty rates, we can see 25% also don't have an internet subscription. So this, again, there's more layers as to what is happening within our school district. And not just information about broadband. There's so many things that really can speak to academic achievement of students. So we know that chronic absenteeism has been a problem since before the pandemic, really, although I think that gets blamed a lot for it. And we know it's not all behavioral. They might be missing school because of transportation issues. We have that data. They might not want to walk through neighborhoods that they don't feel safe. We have that data. They might be responsible for siblings while parents are working multiple jobs, and that's super common in high poverty areas, and we have that data. And then in your rural and lower income areas, internet connection might not be supported or even available. So we have that data. And all of that, you can pull up and use as part of your narrative to explain what's happening with absenteeism, with your regents results, and things of that nature. So I am now running completely out of time. Let's come here. Okay. So I want to close with this. Everything you saw today, again, is free. There's no login, no subscription. We update it annually. It covers every school district, every county, every census tract, every zip code in the state, in the country, and even yours. But let's talk about what it can do, what it can't do. It's not going to replace your beds data, your SIS data, your state reporting. What it's going to do is it's going to give you the external benchmarks that turn your local data into verified, credible stories or contextualized stories, let's say. Census population estimates is going to help tell them why. When we submit Title I numbers, SAPI is going to tell you whether they're consistent or not. And when you write your ELL grants, the census language data is going to tell you who is in your community and whether or not you're reaching them and whether or not you're doing your outreach the right way, right? So if you've got a lot of families in your district that speak Vietnamese and live in an impoverished neighborhood and don't have internet access, is communicating everything through your portal and via email really an effective way to get them involved, for example? So here's a quick reference guide, and I'm going to provide all of this to you, as I said, including step-by-step instructions on how to get to all of the tables that I already showed you, because I know I flew through those. I really don't mean to feed you with a fire hose. I know that sometimes that happens, but there's so much great data and information that I know you can use and need in order to do your jobs over the next couple months and get your reports in. There's also something we have called Census Academy, which has short videos, 5, 6 minute videos, as well as long recorded webinars on all of these topics. And I have a couple in there that are specific to education and specific to SAPI also. So I'm really happy to connect for follow-up. If you need anything district specific, you want a deeper workshop for your data team, you need help building narratives and you need the data for it, here's my contact information. Really contact me anytime. It's my job. I really love to help. And I really, really love to work with educators. You're doing such great work. Let me help support you in that. And that's it for me. So thank you for being here. And if there's any other questions, I can stick around. Otherwise, I hope it gets warmer and starting to feel like spring.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was so informative, very dense. That was a lot of information. And I'm sure that our participants appreciated it. We have run out of time, so I will just thank everyone for joining us. I do want to say in closing, I think the most pertinent particular thing that Dr. Brombo said was that the beautiful thing about data is that every time we look at data, it should be making us ask more questions. And I think that this workshop does exactly that. I think looking at the census websites and all of the different maps and charts and reports that you can get out of there will be extremely helpful for people. And just again, thank you so much for joining us today, everybody.
Thank you.